Is that Nico?
No, that's Dave, I'm sure, right?
Oh, you mean business when you have the 350.
He's just gonna run over my car.
I think that spare wheel weighs as much as your car. It's the same color though.
Dude, that wheel looks tough up there. Dave's not
It
impressed. He
doesn't.
doesn't care.
Dave is not impressed
He's
by
like, I
spare
don't
wheels
fucking
that are
care.
powder coated to match.
Thing's fucking gigantic. Yeah, this would just be a warm up, a mental warm up. So, what's your thought process when you're coming up with the cards? How do the cards work?
So I've been trying to distill stuff that we're currently working on and try to get to the heart of like the topic. I don't know.
Do you have a log of stuff? Are you looking at our project cycles or what?
It's basically based off of our Friday meetings. So
Okay.
like the growing pains card, like that was specifically from like a big talk we were having on a Friday. And it's just like, other people might be going through this. Let's ask some questions about it.
What were we talking about? Which Friday?
It was everything to do with Leah coming on and Alex Tessner leaving.
Oh, right.
And just all the things where it's just like, we would really like to do this, but we don't have the resources to do it.
That portion of it.
And we don't want to compromise on our values to make something happen.
Yeah.
So it's just like, how do you prioritize what you do? How do you... And it's just like, open-ended question. Because it's like, there's a lot of things I'd love to do. I'd love for us not to be recording outside right now next to a giant-ass truck.
I think it's got a nice idle going.
Yeah.
I can smell it right now.
Mm-hmm. I'm not dying from fumes.
Just leave that diesel running, dude.
Yesterday I was working in my parents' kitchen because they're remodeling it. And I was ripping up flooring, which I'm pretty sure was asbestos. So if I die today, that's why.
The cool thing about the situation that you described, where we had somebody outgoing who was doing a good job, somebody incoming who was new at the job, everyone's afraid that something's going to get dropped. Everyone's really comfortable with what's going on. Everyone wants to reward the person who's here, like their hard work. And there's this whole conversation around it. And then, we decided there's only one answer, which is to listen to the values and to listen to our company structure. Those things are set in place for a reason. And then you have a bumpy ride for a couple weeks. And now about a month later, I just feel so glad and proud that we made the decision that we did, that we didn't tweak the whole fabric of our company to
just
accommodate one
that
person's whim. And I think there's like so many lessons in there because people are really scared of change.
Yeah.
Well,
you're
to be more specific, we had a HR recruiting type role who was outgoing, and this person was doing a really good job, and everybody wanted her to stay on. That would have been, it would have been the easiest thing to do because it wouldn't have shaken anything up, and she was doing her job, which is always a good thing. But leading with that fear bias or that bias of the unknown, what's going to happen? Every time you get someone in who's doing something well, and at this point, at that point, she was the most effective person that we'd ever had in that role for getting people into interviews, scheduled for orientations, for onboarding people. Yeah. So naturally, everyone's scared. Well, if she's doing a better job than all of these people that we've had in our past, and if this goes away, this is going to be the best thing ever, or the worst thing ever, because we're never going to find someone that good again. And it seemed like she had some sort of natural gift for this. As we watch the diesel just plow into parking blocks. It's amazing.
It's a monster truck rally out here right now.
Sunday. Be there. Monday is the new Sunday.
Monday's the new Sunday. Swift Street parking lot.
But in my experience, one of the things that was on my mind when we were trying to make this decision is every time something like this happens, we think we found the perfect person. If I fast forward a year later, we always find someone better.
Yeah.
And not necessarily better as in you're a better or more high quality individual, but because of the way the circumstances align themselves, we have a more equipped work pool to pull from. right? If we're reaching into the bag of team members to pull out someone for a higher level position, the people who we're pulling out now are more equipped and dialed in than the same people were a year ago or 2 years ago or when we first started. So
what you're saying is don't be afraid of change, because change always breeds new, potentially better possibilities.
I think it breeds better possibilities, but I think that the lesson is, well, there's the values alignment lesson, which is if you develop these values, you have to stick by them. If you develop these rules as a company, you have to stick by them, especially when times are hard, because you don't really need them when they're not. That's when the whole thing really comes alive. But I think the biggest thing was it's really hard to be, I don't know if it's resilient or to be able to see into the future enough to where it doesn't feel like a panic attack right now. You know, it's just, okay, trust the process. A bumpy road for a week doesn't mean you're making a bad decision.
Yeah.
Be able to sit in that unknown. People were stressing, you know, and it's like, okay, cool. I get it. It's going to be hard for us to onboard this person and get them where they need to go. Yes, it's inconvenient, but if we're able to zoom out enough and not panic in the meantime, we can see, okay, 3 months from now, we're going to be doing really good. 6 months from now, we're not even going to think about this thing. A year from now, the new person's going to be better than we ever had imagined, and we're going to be on this whole other level that we can't even fathom right now.
Yeah.
Like, we don't even know what the best thing is for us, which is really interesting in that Never Split the Difference book that Chris Voss wrote, the FBI, who's a lead hostage negotiator for the FBI.
That sounds amazing.
For a long time. So he's got a book, Never Split the Difference. It's really cool. You can listen to some of his podcasts, really cool negotiation stuff. But one of the things he talks about is engaging in this dialogue with a certain level of openness. And what he says is, never be so sure about what you want that you wouldn't take something better. Meaning, if we're going to do a deal and I'm like, I know what I want to get out of this deal. And you are like, okay, I know what I want to get out of this deal. And we don't make any compromises. We don't show our cards and we just keep it locked in. Maybe I get what I want. Maybe you get what you want. But maybe there's actually a better third case scenario that's better for both of us.
A win-win-win.
Which we can only find through engaging in discussion and exploring the opportunities, you know, to where, what was this? I'm blanking on stories, but someone that he works with was negotiating. It was something like a book distribution deal, or I don't know, some random thing. It doesn't really matter what it is. They were going back and forth on how this was going to work, and somehow the conversation opened up and shifted into the dude on the other end of the deal had all of these properties, and the woman who was trying to get the book deal done was also completely unrelated, looking for spaces to hold this series of events that she wanted to do in person. And through conversation, they ended up working out this magical deal to where it's like she found venues for her events. He got the numbers that he wanted for the distribution deal. She's happy. Like, everything's just working in concert. And that never would have come to fruition if they never would have engaged in this conversation and been so old school hardcore. It's like, this is what I need. This is what I want.
Yeah, you're really thinking about yourself.
I want 25% cut on this, and that's it. And there's nothing else that can, you know.
That's the cutest dog over there. Anyway.
That is it's a big dog. It's a big, small dog.
So, yeah.
And that's the same thing with employees.
It's like once you actually have that communication.
Right. So being willing to have the conversation. And in terms of the workforce, it's kind of, okay, being willing to go forward and never assuming that where we are now is as good as we're going to be.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that goes for, you know, the people who are going to be in the roles for a long time. They're going to get better at the jobs they do.
Yeah.
But also, there are people who are going to come up from somewhere who
Yeah.
are better at certain jobs than the people that we have right now. And
I
that's just
mean-
always been the case.
This is what happens every time we like have a posting for a new team leader or a new coordinator position. It's just like, you know, I never see a shortage of people applying on the team to like new positions as they come up. Like Leah, I think applied to like 3 different positions. And then finally it came down to where it's like, oh, cool, we have this, HR or this recruiter position. Cool. You fit for it perfectly. Were you a great coordinator? Was that the best fit for you? I don't know. That's up to you. I can't speak to it, but it's just like, the more opportunities we have, the more people get to sift through the top is kind of like what I've seen.
Yeah, and one of the cool things about doing those interviews is we had 4 interviews. And I was like, I could work with any of these people.
Yeah.
And make it work.
And they're all still on the team.
In a really awesome way,
Yeah.
And that was cool. I wouldn't be mad about it. That made it kind of hard. But it came down to a lot of specific things and some gut feelings.
Yeah. So how do you reassure people that it's okay to be uncomfortable?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think it kind of goes into some of the stuff that we were talking about last week, where there's a certain amount of it that's just trust, where you build trust over time, and then you would hope that people will extend a certain amount of trust to you as a leader. That can be, you have people who you work with closely. That could be them extending trust to you. It could be extending trust to the people in the business or to the organization at all, whatever, however you want to view that, to where it's like, okay, cool. I'm feeling a little stressed out, but I know the people who are ultimately running this thing, and I'm one of them, have the same goals as I do. So even though it makes me feel a little bit weird, I'm just going to extend a certain level of trust and be like, I'm feeling a little sketched out, but I know you guys have the bigger picture in mind. So one part's trust, and then the other part, there's probably a million different things, but I don't think it's wrong to voice any of those concerns and claim them and just say, this is really just going to make the next month of my life ridiculous.
Yeah.
Or gnarly or hard. And that might be completely true.
Like when Alex was leaving, you were the one on deck to, fill that slot until we found somebody who was right for the position. And you were just like, I'm going to hate it.
Yeah.
But I'm here for it.
It's the worst work that I could ever do. I'm answering
to call
emails
people?
and coordinating things and calling people on the phone. It is just the complete opposite of what I want to do on the day-to-day.
It's not what you want to do.
No, but I'm just like, okay, I'm going to eat it. But I never felt uncertain of the other side. So as far as other people feeling uncertain,
you always trust that we were going to find somebody.
We're going to find somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We always do. We've never not. And I think that is probably the biggest thing is you don't even, what I said before, there's a certain level of trust, and how do you let people know it's okay or it's going to be okay? It's just look at the track record. Just turn around and look backwards. At every stage, we're better than we were before. We've got more things dialed in than we did before. So there's no world, unless we just completely stop paying attention and give up, where this comes out worse.
How do you get used to the ground shifting underneath of you and still working forward? Because it's like in moments like that where somebody leaves who has been doing an amazing job and arguably is the reason why we were in retail set up the way we were. How do you take that in strides where it's just like, yes, this is happening and we're still going to be able to do this? Because for me, it's really hard when I feel like productivity, like those sands moving underneath my feet. It's just like it's hard for me to be in a position where stuff's changing and I have to keep working forward. Because for me, I'm like, oh, this is moving. I got to fix this first. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't like it.
I don't know who does.
It's definitely not enjoyable. I don't even know if I'm as good at swallowing it as I want to be, or as calm with it as I want to be. But it's just kind of one of those things where if you're running a business or if you're in leadership, part of your job is figuring out stuff to which there's no clean answer. Because if there was a clean answer, it would be like a closing sheet in the cafe. How do you close the cafe? You do this series of 50 things, and if you do them all right, the
It's gonna be
cafe
a
is going
good
to be
close.
closed down. And leadership work is different than that. Not just leadership work at this level, but even leadership work in the cafe. Because in the cafe, the reason, a coordinator's there or a team leader is because they're maneuvering through situations to which there is no SOP.
Yeah.
Where you need to be a little more creative, a little more artsy. You have to know the culture so you can do work in this dynamic way. And that's what leadership is, doing things that maybe don't work out all the time. And you have to be able to stomach that. And some of that is reps. And some of that is just belief in people.
Yeah.
And just in people in general. So there's one end of belief to where it's, okay, there's somebody who works for us that's doing a really good job, and I believe in that person. And here's this duality here, because I think everybody is incredibly special, but also not at all. Where everyone has these certain gifts that they can bring to the table and contribute to, whether it's contributing with your family, contributing with your friends, contributing to society as a whole, or through work. Like, we all have different skills that we bring to the table. And that's special because nobody's going to do the thing that you do exactly like you do it, and that makes it awesome.
Sure.
Right?
Everyone has different perspectives on things.
But also, there is not this finite amount of people who can do this one thing. And if you can keep that in mind, to where there's not only one person who can fill this HR recruiter role. Maybe no one will do it exactly how this other person did it. But in terms of doing the job, not having that scarcity mindset to where it's like, oh my God, someone's leaving, we got to keep them at all costs. And it's like, no, actually, there's a million other people who can do this job. I have to find the right one or the right handful that I can pick from to get the right one in there. But knowing that someone's out there that can do it is, belief in people as a whole. That makes me feel more calm because I know that someone can do it.
Yeah. And finding somebody else that has a different perspective and can do it opens you up to those learning moments where you're just like, oh, I didn't think of it that way, but that helps me grow in this other area. Or
yeah. And part of some of our business is we have, I don't know how you really want to call it. When I think about a business like ours, it operates in percentages, to where there's a certain percentage of our workforce that is more or less static. You're one of those static individuals. You've been here for years. Nobody knows the future, but as far as I can tell, I'd like to work with you for a number of years going forward. Great. You're a rock, you're a core. And then there's a certain percentage of our workforce that's a little bit more transient for whatever reason. It's maybe people are in town and then they're out of town. Maybe people are going through school and they're working with us, and then they ultimately have their own dream that they're going to pursue. So some of our workforce is, in flux all the time. And I think it's really cool when people are changing over and we have the opportunity to get new people into these new and exciting positions where we can find, going through the onboarding stuff now with Leah, we're finding a lot of things that can be tweaked, that can be improved, that are being improved upon already. So that's a benefit to the business.
And those are things that we might not have looked at if, like, somebody who is, like, say Alex was still in the role and everybody was fine with it. Everyone was just like, hey, it's great, we're just doing good. We might not have put the attention on it.
Correct. And it's not because Alex is doing a bad job.
No,
it's just
but
because everything's generally working, so why dive deeper?
We're looking at it with fresh eyes now because,
Right.
and it's helping us find the areas that we want to improve.
Yeah, so I think that those turnover situations can be really positive for everybody. We get to see things from a new perspective. We're doing a deep dive and discovering, oh, this is how this process, which was already decently dialed in can be a lot better, and here's some holes that we can plug, and then someone on our team gets a new experience that they get to tap into, right? To where
Yeah.
it's like, okay, cool, I'm going to get to flex a new set of skills and
Yeah.
use what I've learned and impact not just the business, but myself and also the people that we're bringing on as brand new employees in this kind of HR recruitery role.
It gives room for everyone to grow because, like you were talking about leadership, there's never really a clear-cut answer because I'm thinking about our leadership team, and it's just like everyone on our leadership team, like except for you, the owners, like they aren't as experienced. They're still learning. They know a little bit more than the people beneath them. So it's just like everyone is learning in their own stages.
Yeah. I mean, and I would put us in that same boat too.
Oh, sure.
Mark Gessler likes to remind me of this all the time, where he says, you guys have never managed a company this big. Which has basically been
that's a sick burn
since day one.
You guys have never done this. I can tell.
He says it in a very positive, caring way, but it's true. The stuff that we're figuring out, there's no playbook for. So what you have is your belief that what you're doing is possible and is going to work out. Because if you don't want to be sunshine and rainbows when it's not called for. You don't want to ignore reality when it comes knocking at your door and it's nasty, but you have to have a positive belief in what you're doing, because if you're going into things with a defeatist attitude, nothing ever gets done in the way that it could get done. If we were and when we were on the fence about Cat and Cloud as a whole, it just didn't exist. It wasn't until we made the decision of we're going to do this thing and it's going to work.
Yeah.
That's our mindset. And, whether it works or not, who the fuck knows? But we have to say and actually believe and work in such a way that it's going to work. And I think that you can carry that into whatever project you do. And, Stephen Pressfield talks about it, and it's almost, he talks about it in a way to where it's like, by showing up and working in a way that you believe in what you're doing and you have something on the line, you can basically, you're influencing the universe. You're influencing the muse. She is watching you and she sees your intention and belief in yourself, and you can actually, shift some sort of spiritual plane to where the universe comes to your aid. And that never happens if you don't believe or can't maneuver in a way that you're believing.
Yeah, for me, whenever I'm working on a project, like I have always said that if I can picture something in my head, I know I can make it. And so for me, it's like if I picture something in my head, I believe it can be made. And it's just like I've seen time and time again where projects I've start that I can't picture it in my head, I don't believe it, and they never happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like you have to believe that something's possible.
Yeah.
And then be open to the things that will make you, it's like improv. You have to say yes.
Yes, and.
Yes,
right?
and.
Yes,
yeah.
and as soon as you shut down the conversation, your project's not going anywhere.
Yeah. When I was younger and I was actually in an improv group, it was really funny. There was a night where there were like 4 different people, like 4 different groups going up on one night, and I was in the first group, and like I just watched the improv groups devolve over the night, where it's like the people in the last group were just basically all yelling at the same time. It's just like this is great.
What do you think that was? Everybody wanted attention? Or?
No, they like the creative juices were just fried, and so no one knew what to say. They were just all like, "Yes, this is funny." I don't know where I was going with that, but for me, you have to have some belief, and if you don't believe in what you're working on, then you're not going to be able to achieve anything useful. You're just going to be in this circular pattern of problems.
Yeah. It's belief is phase 1, and then there's the second phase, which is making the decision. Because you could believe that something's possible, and you could believe that you could do it. And then the second phase of that for me is making the decision to actually do it.
If you believe it, it will come.
Because you know what I mean?
Yeah. And
saying, I'm doing this. This is going to happen.
then you can't be
We are
stopped by the decisions that you don't, or the things you don't know. You have to make the best informed decision that you have, right?
Yeah, I mean, you don't know anything. What if you knew everything? There's just so many more reasons for you to stop before you start.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of people say that, and I get why they say that. If you knew all the little quirks and shenanigans and hoops and bullshit you have to jump through to open something seemingly as simple as a coffee shop, it's, no thanks.
Yeah. It's hard for me because I'm the type of person that wants things to be like perfect or finished before like you start using them, right?
Yeah.
And like take it in here, I wanted everything to be like all the construction to be done before we started moving stuff in. But now it's just like that's not the case and everything's just getting layered on top. And so it's just there's no level of perfection. You have to like take what you can.
I have a lot of that too, and I found that little book that I made, I edited it just to no end.
Yeah.
And
I'm surprised it's out.
Had
no, I'm just kidding.
Then three other people looked at it too.
Yeah. I remember you were working with like that editor.
There's one who runs a local bookstore in town. There was another one who's in the Bay Area, and a third person who didn't end up working out. It wasn't a super strong editor, but just
still
triple
three
scrub.
people. Yeah.
Triple scrubbed. And I had some things
no
that were
scrubs,
wrong
dude.
in it. I had some capitalization formatting errors in the last section, and I was just like, damn. Like, I did my due diligence. I did everything I could have. There's no way it could have been any better.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of prepping the book because I still want to do the ebook for it. So I was like, okay, cool. Now I have an opportunity to make these changes. So I'm making the tweaks. Did them. Still haven't formatted the ebook yet, which
We'll get it done.
Flying up to Portland for us to go to SCA, and I was reading, what is it? Stillness is the Way, Stillness is the Key. One of Ryan Holiday's books. I don't know. They all have the same style of title.
Great.
The obstacle is the way, stillness is the key. And I found a typo in this book that's, I don't know who it's published by, maybe Penguin or Workman or something, who like
Nobody's perfect.
Big name publishing company with the best editors on earth, and there was a double printed sentence. Like completely
like the same sentence twice?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was a pretty weird, blatant error. And I was like, oh, weird. Even the best
get bit.
Even the best get bit sometimes. And the funny thing is, when I was looking at it, reading it, I wasn't like, this guy's an idiot. I was like, oh, that's just like a random editing mistake.
I think that helps make you remember that everyone's human.
Well, and it's a trope at this point, but you're your own worst critic, right?
Well,
it's like,
I can't look at anything I've made the same. It pains me when I look at people looking at the merch shelf because I'm just like, I don't want A, that criticism, and like B, I see all the flaws in it. And me as an artist, I told myself a long time ago that I will know I will know I've reached being good, or like my goal is to create something that when I look at it, I think somebody else made it. And that's an unobtainable goal.
I don't think you can do that. Yeah.
I don't think you could do that, but that's why it makes it, for me, that's why it makes it kind of a good goal. Because it's like always going to make me try to improve myself and try different things. But at the same time, like if I'm waiting for that day, I'm going to be sorely disappointed.
Yeah, maybe the better goal is I want to make something that I can absolutely tell that I made, and I'm just so proud of it.
Oh, and I've done that multiple times. Like the bandana we have, I'm so happy with that. Even though like I look at it and I see all the flaws in it.
What's the difference between things like that, the bandana that you're really happy with, and some of the other things where you're just, I don't want to look at it. I can't stare it directly
like our
in
ceramics?
the face. Sure.
The thing like the bandana is something where it was completely 100%. That started out as a personal project.
Yeah.
I did this drawing for Verve a long time ago, and it never got used. It wasn't necessarily meant to get used. It was something that was just like, I'm having fun with it, and I always wanted to revisit it and make it better. And now that we're here and we came out with like our new word mark, last year ish, I was just like, oh, perfect. Here's my opportunity to make it better. And like sat on the unfinished version of it for months. And then like, it was really just a personal thing to where it's just like, I want to see if I can get this much further. I've always wanted to do drawing where it's like I fill out the full canvas, and I never did it. Like I have a skateboard deck with the same style of artwork at home that like, and so it was like more of an accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas other things like the ceramic cups we have, I'm just like, I feel like I just slapped a design on the side of them.
Well, yeah, you might be selling yourself short there. But I'm more curious about the bandana. So with the bandana, passion project, something that had been in your head for a long time, how did you know when it was done this time? How did you know when you're putting down the pen?
Once I reached the edge of the page, essentially, because I gave myself like a square 4,000 by 4,000 canvas, and I was like, I'm just gonna fill up the whole thing with just this design. Which was funny because there were a couple times when I made the canvas bigger because I'm like, oh, I like how this line is going, so I'm just gonna make it bigger so I can extend it and it can connect over here, and then it reached a point where I'm like, it's full, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
This is good.
Yeah.
And
So go
like
ahead.
there's been I have this notebook full of a bunch of these types of drawings where, because I always told myself, I'm like, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna like keep expanding it. And I usually have ruined so many drawings that way because I get to a point in them where I'm like, if I stop now, it's good, but let's keep going.
So your canvas was kind of
The
like
limiting.
it was like a deadline, though.
Yeah.
Not even the limiting thing.
Well, it was the finish line.
It was the finish line.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's kind of, yeah. So that's a physical
Yeah.
or digitally imposed limitation, I guess. But you could almost think about that as a time limit. If we're saying, okay, we're going to do this project and it's going to be done by X date, and then cool, there's the decision.
Yeah.
You made the decision ahead of time that once this happens, it's done. Once we get to October 23rd, we're delivering this new thing.
Yeah, we did that with the bags.
Right.
Like I wanted to have them done by our birthday.
Yeah.
And I remember like the day before, I was just like, well, sending all the files and done.
Yeah.
And then months later, they were like, another month goes by after some revisions and more communication, and I'm like, oh, now we're done.
How do you think doing stuff like that here has changed the way you do your personal work? I remember at that little, I don't know what it was. It was like this future scope thing when we went to the table out at Natural Bridges, and we were looking at a lot of your personal projects. And one of the things that struck me was that you had a lot of personal projects that you started, but very few of them were finished. Yeah, they were all ideas. And now you have a role where you have to design and ship new stuff basically every quarter. Has that impacted any of the things that you do personally?
I wish I could say yes. Like, it's given me a better clarity on like systems. Like for our merch, we have this whole system for the roadmap of launching a new collection. So since I've come on, we've like moved to doing merch in collections. So everything feels a little cohesive, and we have this roadmap, and it's like you work from the launch date backwards, and you're like, all right, cool, we want to launch by this date. Well, it's going to take this much time to do marketing materials around it. It's going to take this much time for us to actually get them. Then it's going to take this much time for like us to pay for them. And it's going to take this much. And so you work backwards. So it's given me if I had any sort of deadline for my personal projects, I have a framework for plugging stuff in. But
what keeps you from giving yourself deadlines for your personal projects?
I think it goes back to that idea of wanting perfection. It's just like, this is the idea in my head, and I want to achieve that versus accepting the limitations. Like we're talking about moving into our new roastery, and it's like, I want things to be finished and done before we start putting stuff in, because then we'll know that, in my mind, it's like, then we'll know that we're not building on top of like I told you I was working on my parents' house this weekend, and we were ripping out cabinets and like just finding, oh, there's a bunch of termite damage here and this, that. And everyone's saying the contractor will just put new plywood over it. It's going to be fine. I'm like, you're just going to be building on top of crap? Like, I don't want to do that. And so it's the same mentality with projects. Like, I want projects to be like finished. And I guess there is no real finished for things, but that's just that's what stops me. This idea of perfection, and I have trust issues, so I don't let anyone else perfect things for me.
Here's a rare yes or no question. Do you want to finish your personal projects?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
It's hard because like I said earlier, if I can picture it, I usually know how to make it. And for the things that I can't picture, that's what stops me. Like, for example, the one I'm working on forever, it's going to require some like computer programming. I don't know that. For me, that's a mystery black box. And because I don't know that, it just stops me. I'm like, that's a necessity, and I can't figure it out. So I guess I'm just going to not finish it. You know?
Yeah.
And I don't, yeah.
That's like me avoiding taking the heater core out of my car because it just seems ridiculous.
Well, like from a very young age, I had a dream to like build my own bass.
Like stand-up bass?
No.
Bass guitar,
yeah. And I named it Juliet because it had the most likelihood of actually dying and not actually becoming true. And a few years back, my nephews they got into, guitars and stuff and started building their own. And I'm just like, perfect. This is my opportunity to get my feet wet on like helping them build their guitars so that I can prove myself that I can do it. And then like I screw up a few of the things on theirs and I'm like, well, I'm never doing it. I screwed it up. I'm not good. I didn't take that as a lesson of like, oh, you can learn from your mistakes and actually get better and actually make the things that you want to do.
And also, what are you thinking though, really? Like, how much ego do you have to assume that the thing that you're going to make that you've never done before is actually going to be, or even good? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's a ridiculous assumption that you're going to be able to make a bass. Because like Juliet is probably, that's probably like the 50th bass that you make, right?
Yeah.
Like once you've made all these terrible, crappy instruments that are borderline unplayable, and they're just okay. This is garbage. This is garbage. This is garbage. This is garbage. And every time you make a little bit of garbage, you're just figuring this out, and this out, and this out, and that out, and
that's why I go back to that dream I have as an artist, where it's just like I want to eventually make something that I will see and not think is mine. And that's why I love it's a lesson in there because it's just like. It accepts me. It gives me room to accept that crap. It gives me the room to accept the garbage that I make, and I just have to. It's a life lesson that I have to step aside from that limiting belief of like, if it's not perfect the first time, I don't want to try.
So it sounds like you've got it dialed in your head, and now you just have to align your actions with your belief system. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Well, what's the next step, or what's the next project that you're gonna do, or because it kind of feels like intuitively all this stuff, but your projects are still kind of in the same place that they've been.
Yeah, and that's because I'm kind of obsessive and I can't multitask. So if I work on a project, I want to work on it for a week at a time. But that's I can't set things down, which is another reason why, going back to the whole shifting sand question, where it's just like, how do you progress forward when things underneath you are moving? Where it's just like, I want to focus on one thing. And so if I'm having to deal with a new team member coming on, it's just like, okay, cool. I want to put all my energy into that. I can't like spend 2 hours on this and then go do this. That's a hard gear shift for me. That's a money shift right there.
I think you got to learn how to shift the gears.
I'm not saying I don't. Yeah.
I mean, I get it. It's annoying, but I think an hour a day is how things really get done. And then the sprints are kind of sometimes necessary, but just not the healthiest way to do everything in the long term.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like because I default work in the way you're describing. I would love a block of time because this is something I used to do. Okay, I'm taking a week off.
And I'm going to work on my car.
I'm going to get this thing. I'm going to get some Airbnb somewhere random, and I'm going to finish this project that I'm doing. And it's going to be me sitting at the computer for 8 hours a day, and I'm just going to drink coffee and eat food but
work.
It's not that fun. And you don't learn as much, at least for me, if I'm doing a writing project or something artistic, if I kind of touch it every day. And it almost feels like I'm not getting anything done that day. I just set the timer. Cool, I'm just going to do whatever for an hour. Every day kind of feels the same. It's definitely not exciting. It definitely is not. You're not having these big, epic shifts, but when you look at what you've written or what you've created and compare it to what you were working on 6 months ago, it's shifted dramatically. And I think that's kind of where we're taking with me, Jared, and Charles, committing to our new weekly meetings. You will be in there for a couple hours every week, and it just doesn't, most days it doesn't feel like anything's actually happening. It just kind of feels like, here we are again, but when we look at what we're trying to get done, you can see it all getting funneled in the right direction, and you can see the things happening. And sometimes they're little and sometimes they're big. And some of them were just stuff that had been hanging out forever. Cool, updated values with the removal of hats and some of these other things. Had been sitting in our brains for months?
Yeah.
6 months? Maybe more. I don't know when the first time we talked about it was. We just hadn't finished. So it's just like, okay, here's how we're going to do it. And we do it much like you're doing the merch launch, where it's, okay, here's kind of a goal date. If we had new onboarding, orientation, all of these things, this is a trimester goal. Let's set this goal for, August 31st. Then how are we going to make all that happen? We got to get these values out there. That's first and foremost. Okay, how does that work? Okay, cool. Well, we got to roll it out with the executive team first. Then we're going to have to do it with upper leadership so that every time we talk about it, the upper leadership's getting a refresher. Then we can bring it to the company. All these little, and then the quirky things that come along with that, which because you're involved in them, where, okay, if we're going to do all staff and roll this thing out, we can't just show up. It's got to feel like something special. So how are we going to make it feel special? And it's all these just, none of them are mind melters, right?
Yeah.
Running a business isn't really a mind melter. It's having a vision and slowly working towards it a little bit every day or a little bit every week until you finally see things are getting done. But it doesn't always feel as epic as maybe people think it should. It's like you're fucking looking at Instagram and these people are like, live your passion, bro. I come up to work every day and I'm just psyched out of my mind. And I'm like, really?
Who's that guy that does really aggressive workout? Like he walks with a weighted vest and just yells at you?
Oh, I don't know. Liver King, maybe?
Little liver puree.
Everybody? Oh, David Goggins?
Yeah.
Goggins is the man. I'm down with Goggins. That dude's on fire. But it's just, so he's resonating more with what I'm talking about than these people who are like, love what you do and you'll never work a day in your life. And I'm just like, really, it's actually the opposite. If you love what you do, you're going to work harder than you've ever worked before because you know what the hell you're doing.
That's
know why you're doing it,
That's it's really funny because that's the, not moral difference, but that's the big difference between me and my partner, Terry. She works because basically it's the mindset of well, it's a job, and I want to get compensated for my work. And for me, I've always been at a job because I have a belief about why I'm there. And it's much harder for me to, separate those two things. And it's just one of those things where it keeps me going, where it's Friday at 7 and I'm thinking about something, or oh, cool, I know why I want to be working on this because I know why I'm doing it. And I have a belief about it.
It's funny because I'm sure your work, when it goes well, is really rewarding, but loving what you do does in no way, shape, or form make it easy. It's I remember even things that aren't earth-shattering, like training for barista competitions. I would have all these long nights, long evenings,
Those aren't easy.
3 months of my life where I'm engaging with stuff that I really love. It's like, I love espresso. I love making cappuccinos. Figuring out the signature drink is fun. Figuring out how to craft a performance, even putting all the tablewares and getting like all that stuff, I really enjoy it. And on the day-to-day, it fucking sucks.
Yeah.
I get so pissed. I'm kicking chairs around, throwing shit, and just
Daddy's here.
Just angry about stuff. But it all pays off at the end.
Sure.
And I think because of what we see on social media, it's all these people having a good time all the time. We expect to go into work and just have it feel like an angel's whispering in our ear or something, and it just doesn't feel like that. On the day-to-day, things can be really rewarding, but it's not like you're at Disneyland every day.
Yeah.
The work is going to be hard.
Like,
that doesn't mean it's not meaningful.
We've been working on these videos with Mark, and it's mostly been me behind the camera and me editing it, and like the work is hard. But like I'll sit there when I'm done editing it and watch it more times than anyone else and like appreciate it.
Yeah, if I do a skate edit, it's like 2 hours of my life is just watching it over and over and over again. I'm like, yeah. I
always, whenever I'm working on a project, I always like I'll get to a point where I'm done for the night. But if it's like a drawing or if it's a video or if it's animation, I'll always like take a picture of it or put it on my phone. And as I'm laying down to go to sleep, I'll just be looking at it, like analyzing, like, right, what's my next step? Okay, cool, I'm going to work on this next. Or, cool, I could do this. Or, oh, I hate this audio edit. That's almost like an obsession, but it's like, it basically is just like, yeah, it's work. But like, I believe in what I'm doing, so I'm going to put in that work.
That feeling overall on the day-to-day, the feeling of knowing that you're doing something that matters to you is maybe cooler than having that chasing the dragon feeling of one day I'm going to make something that I'm going to look at it and not know that it came from me.
Yeah.
Like that's more of like a vacation style fantasy. With what you're describing right now is just someone who's deeply engaged in what they're doing. And I think that's something that we could all hope to be. The fireworks and the celebrations are not what make up our life. Those are fewer and far between. And just embracing the responsibility that we have, embracing the opportunity that we have, embracing the work in front of us that's great because people enjoy that shit. You know what I mean? Like, how cool is it to see, like, people are going over to the merch shelf and they're buying stuff that you made. Like, that is a mind melter. Like, that's wild.
Oh, it's weird.
That's pretty cool.
I remember one day I was sitting in my car and this person driving a van just like went around the intersection corner, and I saw him driving, and he was wearing like the pocket t-shirt we made. And I'm just like, just watching him drive past, and I'm like, I made that. He doesn't know.
Yeah.
He doesn't know I made that. It's real weird to watch somebody else like.
It's like when you're behind someone
something
in line at the grocery store and they're wearing a Cat and Cloud shirt or a hat. I almost always want to say, "What's up?
What's up? Nice hat." That happened when I moved into the place where I'm at right now. I was sitting on my couch after like the first weekend or so, and the neighbor comes across the street, comes walking out of their house, and they're wearing one of the maroon zip-up hoodies, and I'm just like, oh gosh.
Yo, you're welcome. All right, I think we're hitting a wall here.
Cool. Well,
good convo. I got LBR anyway.
All that to say, trust the process. Hey everyone, that's the podcast for the week. Thanks so much for listening. If you heard something that inspired you, let us know, or tell a friend. These are the types of connections that are the most important to us and that we seek to create every day. If there's something you heard and you want to know more about, send us an email to podcast@catandcloud.com or head to our website, catandcloud.com/podcast, and let us know. While you're on our site, check out everything we have to offer. Dive deep into one of our single origin coffees or pick up a little treat for yourself. We have something for everyone, so check it out. Also, find us in the usual places, YouTube, Instagram. We're always there sharing amazing things. All right, that's it. Thanks everyone for being awesome. We'll be back next week.